For over 3 centuries, from the Pequot War of 1637 to the current Balkan operations, citizen soldiers have served with distinction and valor. Before there was a country, farmers, gentlemen, tradesmen, and merchants were willing to lay down their plows, leave their jobs, and shoulder their rivals to preserve their mutual safety and freedom and defend the frontier of the British colonies. Along the battle line on Breed's Hill at the start of the War for Independence, the American militia proved to the world that civilian volunteers could be molded into a trained fighting force to be reckoned with. They stood their ground at Lexington Green, and throughout the war provided the large numbers of armed men on short notice that General Washington's Continental Army needed to defeat the British. In the War of 1812, American militia regiments withstood the onslaught of seasoned British troops, veterans of the Napoleonic Wars, and fought them from our nation's capital to New Orleans. Throughout the 19th century, the size of the regular army was small, and the militia provided 70% of the troops that fought in the Mexican War. When the Civil War broke out, volunteer militia from all over the country came to fight in both blue and gray uniforms. 1 month after the Spanish-American War began, an expeditionary force sailed to the Philippine Islands. Because most of the regular army was in Cuba and Puerto Rico, 3/4 of the first U.S. Army troops to arrive in the Philippines were National Guardsmen. And it was a volunteer force of Rough Riders that made their mark in American military history. By the time World War I came around, the National Guard was unstoppable. Guard divisions saw more action than any other Army component, making up 40% of the U.S. combat divisions in France and confirming their combat-ready status and professionalism. The National Guard continued to play a vital role in World War II combat operations on both sides of the globe, contributing 19 divisions and being the first to deploy overseas and the first to fight. When Communist North Koreans stormed across the 38th parallel, units of National Guard troops again reported for active duty. And in the late 60s, Guard members demonstrated their combat-ready professionalism in Vietnam, earning more than 4,000 decorations during that conflict. Throughout Desert Shield and Desert Storm, over 62,000 National Guard members were called up. They served with distinction and fought with valor, proving yet again how effective citizen soldiers can be, and providing a clear-cut example of the deterrent power of our 20th century Minutemen and women. Today, the Army National Guard continues to play a key role in concert with the nation's active forces. The Army National Guard is always ready, always there, providing more than half of America's Army combat power and more than 1/3 of its combat support and combat service support structure. But the National Guard is unique among the service components because of its dual mission. Not only is it a federal force ready to respond to the nation's call in times of war or a national crisis or emergency, it is also available to respond at the direction of the state's governors in aiding friends and neighbors during times of domestic emergency or disaster. When the heavens thunder and rain brings swelling floodwaters, or when fires, earthquakes, hurricanes, or any other natural disaster wreaks havoc on the community, it is the Army National Guard to the rescue, saving lives, restoring order, protecting property, and helping devastated neighborhoods rebuild. Citizens serving citizens with pride and tradition, protecting life and property, preserving peace, order, and public safety. In every crisis, California National Guard members have proven themselves capable of responding immediately and effectively to the needs of their fellow citizens, unmatched in their dedication to duty and adding yet another chapter to the annals of peacetime heroism. As a current member of the California Army National Guard, you should rightly feel the pride in yourself, in your unit, and in the Guard as a whole. Today, as you stand ready to leave the comforts of home and family at a moment's notice, whether to help your friends and neighbors in crisis or defend your nation's interests, your patriotic service is the continuum that bonds the spirit and commitment of the colonial militia's 17th century Minuteman to the information age warrior of the 21st century. And as you, a proud heir of this militia tradition, look to your future with the Guard, look closely at these pictures of the valiant members in whose footsteps you follow. Look very closely. Where do you see yourself? when those colonial militiamen coolly held their fire on Bunker Hill as 7 crack regiments of the British Army advanced toward them, it was an officer whose discipline and training helped instill in his volunteer troops the courage to stand their ground, admonishing them, "Do not fire until you see the whites of their eyes." And it was Captain John Parker, standing on Lexington Green, who inspired his 77 militiamen to hold their position in defiance of the British advance guard with the words, "Stand your ground, don't fire unless fired upon, but if they want to have a war, let it begin here." When Colonel Jefferson Davis issued the command, "Stand fast, Mississippians," the Mississippi Rifles in Buena Vista, Mexico, 1,000 miles from home, displayed a rock-like defense against an enemy many times its own strength. After holding off 6 attacks by determined Alabama regiments, and knowing that his troops did not have enough ammunition for a 7th, Joshua Chamberlain, a former college professor, in command of the 20th Maine Volunteers, ordered his troops to fix bayonets and charge downhill, stopping the Confederate threat to the Union flank. And it was a Lieutenant Colonel, Teddy Roosevelt, who led his 1st New Mexico Cavalry up Kettle Hill to seize the heights overlooking the city of Santiago, Cuba, leading to the Spanish surrender 2 weeks later. In the Argonne Offensive, the 35th Division gained over 6 kilometers of ground in one day, in large part due to the precision and rapidity of cannon fire from Battery D 129th Field Artillery, commanded and trained by Captain Harry Truman. When orders came to take 2 hills south of Seoul held by the Chinese, 2 battalions of Puerto Rico's 65th Infantry Regiment were ordered to fix bayonets and charge straight at the enemy positions. They did, and the Chinese fled. And the list goes on. From Luzon to Normandy, from the jungles of Vietnam to the deserts of Kuwait, from the floods of Johnstown to the forest fires and earthquakes of California. Wherever and whenever Guard members have been ordered into harm's way, they have gone without reservation, without question. Why? Their patriotism? Certainly. Their professionalism? To be sure. But also because of the leadership skills exemplified by their commanding officers. Leadership means more than simply issuing orders. The leaders who gave those orders inspired and had the trust and confidence of their troops. A trust and confidence that those officers had been thoroughly trained, were level-headed, and had the requisite experience to be able to handle any crisis, however great. Where do you see yourself in the years to come? Are you ready for increased responsibility? Are you ready to achieve your greatest potential? Are you ready to move into a position of leadership and have a greater voice in the operation of the Guard? If you're ready to accept the special challenges of leadership as a commissioned officer in the California Army National Guard, then Officer Candidate School is for you. OCS is a dynamic and demanding course of instruction through which officer candidates transition from enlisted to commissioned status as second lieutenants. Selection to attend the OCS program does not guarantee successful completion and commissioning. Each candidate must earn his or her commission by demonstrating the requisite leadership skills necessary to succeed as an officer. Training is usually held 1 weekend a month and during 2 14-day periods, usually in the summer months. This rigorous training is conducted over an approximately 18-month period, but allows candidates to continue their civilian employment or education. As with all commissioning programs, the requirements are tough and the standards are high. But if you have what it takes, the California Army National Guard has challenging. Is OCS demanding? You bet it is. It has to be. In time of crisis, many of the decisions officers are entrusted to make affect not only their own well-being, but the safety of the men and women under their command. Are the rigors of OCS worth it? Only you can put a value on intangibles such as achieving your potential, being able to accept greater responsibility, and having the ability to take on a leadership role. But there are tangible benefits as well. Being a California Army National Guard officer means that you've proven yourself to be responsible, reliable, ambitious, and self-confident, all traits that employers look for in management candidates. Being a commissioned officer in the Guard, therefore, gives you a competitive edge in the civilian job market. Also, additional funding for college is available to those OCS candidates upon completion of the first phase of their training. Are you worried about the cost of continuing your education? An extra $350 per month in benefits can make that degree a reality. And the difference in pay rates between the enlisted and officer ranks is far from insignificant. Compare the pay per weekend drill for an E6 and E7 with that for a captain and lieutenant colonel, all with 10 years of service, and decide if an 80% pay increase has any appeal. Give consideration also to retirement benefits. A lieutenant colonel who retires with 20 years of service will receive virtually double the retirement pay of an E7, and that's for the rest of his or her life. But again, these benefits don't come cheap. OCS takes hard work, commitment, and drive.
What's your interval here? Okay, slow it down, Sergeant, just slow it down.
However, with this rigorous training under a teach, assess, and counsel staff of carefully selected, highly qualified, and motivated officers and NCOs, you'll learn to reason, make decisions for yourself, then command others with self-confidence and assurance. The training begins with an officer candidate indoctrination program, a grueling 44-hour endurance exercise that is designed to see how potential officers function under pressure. Make no mistake, this is not a mindless hazing ritual that new candidates must endure as part of some sophomoric initiation rite. In a combat or other life-threatening situation, Army officers have to make decisions under unimaginable stress. While the OCIP certainly can't match those conditions, with these exercises, the TAC staff and the candidates themselves soon discover how each candidate thinks, behaves, and reacts when strained to their mental and physical limits. At the end of the weekend, those who measure up to the challenge are officially accepted as officer candidates and begin their 18-month training curriculum. During this three-phase program, the TAC staff will continuously develop and then evaluate the leadership potential of each candidate in order to determine their eligibility for commissioning. Phase 1 is conducted at Fort Meade, South Dakota, in conjunction with 14 other states. This 2-week summer training session includes classroom instruction in training management, operations, Common Core medical tasks, nuclear, biological, chemical weapons defense, communications, and a field exercise to conduct map reading and land navigation. Phase 2 consists of 11 weekend training assemblies held 1 weekend a month during the fall, winter, and spring at facilities in San Luis Obispo, Sacramento, or Southern California, whichever location is closest to the candidate's home. Classroom sessions will cover such topics as soldier team development, supervision, teaching and counseling, decision-making, and communications. In order to sharpen their leadership skills at all levels, candidates will rotate as platoon leaders, sergeants, and squad leaders during field exercises and have their performance continually evaluated. For each of these weekend drills, there will be monthly homework assignments. A series of weighted examinations are also administered throughout the course, and candidates are required to score at least 70% on each examination. Phase 3 is another 2-week summer training session conducted at Fort Lewis, Washington, with over 600 candidates from 36 states. In this final test, candidates are put into a stressful environment, then evaluated on their use of acquired skills. First week training focuses on the squad level, where candidates undergo a series of grueling exercises designed to test squad leaders in various force-on-force actions they might encounter. In the second week, training elevates to the platoon level, with candidates undergoing platoon operations and actions. During this third phase of the program, the TAC staff must determine if the candidate possesses the requisite knowledge, attitudes, and skills to be entrusted as officers with the lives of the soldiers that will be placed under their authority. The officer candidate's assessment during this phase becomes the final recommendation for commissioning as a second lieutenant in the California Army National Guard. The requirements for applying for admission to OCS are relatively simple. Applicants must be between the ages of 18 and 30, although in some cases, waivers are available to age 39. They must be U.S. citizens, demonstrate an understanding and proficiency in the English language, be high school graduates or have a GED, be of good moral character, and achieve a general technical score of 110 on the Armed Forces Vocational Aptitude Battery or the Armed Forces Classification Test. Applicants must also have scored at least 850 on the SAT or 19 on the ACT, And although they may begin the OCS program with as few as 60 college semester credit hours, prior to graduation from OCS and commissioning as second lieutenants, they must have attained at least 90 college semester credit hours. In addition, applicants must possess basic leadership qualifications, be able to effectively deal with people, meet the medical requirements prescribed in NGR and AR 40-501, and must be eligible for a secret security clearance. As to physical fitness, applicants must only complete a diagnostic Army physical fitness test for admission to the program. However, between 60 and 90 days prior to departure for Phase 1 training, they must score at least 180 on the APFT, or they will be released. There it is. On one side of the balance are 18 months of hard work and rigorous mental and physical training. On the other side is achieving your potential, being able to accept more responsibility, becoming a leader, having more say in the operation of the Guard, gaining a competitive edge in the civilian job market, receiving better pay and a larger retirement income. What tips the balance for you? Do you have the desire to become a leader? Are you up to the challenge? If so, contact your platoon sergeant, platoon leader, unit, or company commander and begin the exciting process of becoming an officer in the California Army National Guard.
I ordered my troops to stand their ground at Lexington and led my soldiers in every war this country has ever fought.
Through the swamps of Louisiana, the rolling hills of Pennsylvania, the forest of the Argonne,
the beaches of Normandy, and the islands of the Pacific.
Up the frozen ridgetops south of Seoul, through the jungles of Vietnam, and across the Iraqi desert.
I've led them into areas devastated by earthquakes, fires, and floods.
We are officers in the Guard.